They locked me in the smallest room, stole my memories, and called it a favor. But they forgot one thing. I still owned the entire foundation. I let them believe they had won until the sheriff showed up at their Sunday brunch with the sale papers. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. The new lock clicked, sharp and final, on the door to my own bedroom. It wasn't a turn knob lock. It was a silver electronic keypad that looked like something they'd put on a safe. I stood there, house key still warm in my hand from the market trip, staring at the plastic numbers where my life used to be. My clothes were not inside. They were boxed up, stacked outside the guest room door like donations. Andre appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Ma, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice low, almost practiced. "I'm standing in the hallway of my house," I said, the words tasting like copper. "And I'm looking at a lock you installed on my room. Where are my things?" He shrugged, the betrayal heavy on his shoulders. "We moved them. The guest room is more accessible for you anyway. You won't have to climb the stairs as much." He didn't mention the master bedroom was on the same floor. He just kept smoothing the towel. I could hear the faint, muffled sound of a woman sighing inside my space. Kendra was in there. She was already resting on the mattress that held 30 years of my marriage and my sleep. And she hadn't even earned the dust on the lampshade. I walked to the new keypad. "Give me the code, Andre." He stepped closer, trying to shrink the space between us. "It's for privacy, Ma. Boundaries. We're building a future here. We need a sanctuary." A sanctuary built on theft. I could feel the old rage, the kind I'd swallowed for decades, trying to crawl up my throat. I swallowed it back down. Mothers endure, I remembered, but I was done enduring the erosion of my dignity. This wasn't just about a room. This was about the very foundation of respect I thought I had built. That night, I moved into the guest room, the one he called accessible. The mattress was stiff, the closet rod was broken, and one of the outlets sparked when I tried to plug in my reading lamp. The room was cold, a steady draft moving beneath the door. I could hear the television through the wall, too loud, and then Kendra's laughter, the sound of her winning. The next day, the real siege began. I tried to do laundry in the utility room, but the door was chained shut. Andre came to the guest room when I knocked. "Oh, we're storing some of Kendra's studio equipment in there," he explained, avoiding my eyes. "We'll be using the laundry service for now. It's easier for everyone." Easier for everyone was their code for easier for Kendra. I needed to check the circuit breaker for that sparking outlet, which was located in the locked master closet. I knocked on the master door. Kendra opened it halfway, wearing my late husband's army t-shirt, the one I had worn to bed every night since the funeral. "Is there an emergency, Dolores?" she asked, one painted eyebrow raised. "The breaker in the closet. I need to flip the switch for the guest room outlet before it causes a fire." Kendra looked over her shoulder, then back at me, a smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. "We just polished the floor. You can wait until Andre gets home." She did not move. She did not flinch. She was daring me to fight for a basic utility in my own house. The tension in my jaw felt like concrete setting. I watched her close the door slowly, deliberately, giving me time to see the shiny, new silver keypad. That keypad was not protection for them. It was a cage for me. The betrayal escalated past inconvenience. Later that week, I found the boxes containing my memories. They hadn't just moved them, they had purged them. My husband's medals, the ones he earned in Korea, were tossed in an old shoebox under cans of paint in the garage. My framed wedding portrait was face down in a dark hall closet. The glass shattered across the rug. Andre saw me standing there, sweeping up the glass shards. He just nodded toward the kitchen. "Lunch is ready, Ma. Come eat." I looked at him, my only son, standing in the doorway of a house I built brick by brick, telling me to stop cleaning up the broken pieces of my past. I felt a seismic shift inside me. The endurance that had been my shield turned into iron. I dropped the broom. I walked to the office, which they hadn't touched yet. Too boring for their content corner. I pulled open the desk drawer where I kept all the old, serious paperwork. They thought I was quiet because I was weak. They thought I was tired because I was done. They didn't know I was just recharging. My fingers brushed against the thick, smooth cardstock. It was the business card from Monica Vance, my lawyer since 2005. And then, beneath a stack of old property tax receipts, I found it. The original heavy deed for the house, with only one name on the signature line. Mine. Andre didn't own the bones of this house, only the space I allowed him to occupy. I slipped the deed into the pocket of my housecoat. It felt like a solid weapon, cold and true. The next move wouldn't be a shout or a fight. It would be paperwork. I'd been locked out of my sanctuary, but I still held the key to their entire foundation. The sound of the lock clicking was the end of a lifetime, but it was the beginning of a plan. I needed leverage before I made a move. Calling Monica Vance immediately felt too loud, too desperate. Instead, I started watching. I became a ghost with a specific tactical purpose, documenting the crime scene. Kendra had turned my dining room into her content corner. The white backdrop swallowed the light, and the hiss of her massive ring light was the only sound I heard most days. My grandmother's lace doilies, the ones she brought from the old country, were stuffed behind the white sheet. Vintage doesn't get clicks, Kendra had told Andre, loud enough for me to hear. The next morning, I walked past the kitchen and saw the donation boxes. My china, the set I'd saved for years, was labeled Donation Fragile. The handwriting was Kendra's sprawling script. I paused, feeling the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't reach for the box. I reached for my phone. I took a picture of the label, the kitchen countertop, and the date stamp. Evidence. This was no longer passive disrespect. It was active, financial destruction. Later that afternoon, Kendra had her friends over for what she called brunch and manifesting. I stayed in the guest room, the stiff mattress digging into my back. I could hear their giggling. One of her friends, a woman named Tiffany, was loudly recounting a story. And then she said, "You old people don't know when to step back." I almost choked on my mimosa. Kendra's cackling reply was the final blow. I sat on the edge of the bed and felt a tremor run through my hands. This wasn't just about the china. This was about them actively humiliating me and trying to force me out socially. The next morning, my knees were swelling. The arthritis was sharp, a burning reminder of the many years I spent on my feet at that second job to make sure Andre had his braces. I desperately needed a hot soak. The guest bathroom only had that slippery stand-up shower I couldn't trust. I walked down the hall and knocked on the master bathroom door. Andre opened it, towel wrapped around his waist, the air thick with steam and expensive bath salts. "Ma, what is it?" "My knees are acting up, son. I need the tub. Just 10 minutes to soak." I kept my voice level, the vulnerability ping clear. I wasn't demanding. I was asking for basic relief. He glanced back into the room, where Kendra was likely applying a face mask, and sighed. "Ma, the guest tub is fine. You told us it was broken, but maybe you can just use the shower for now. We're on a tight budget. We can't call a plumber for a few weeks." "I've told you twice the tub doesn't work, Andre. The drain is rusted shut." "Then maybe try the heating pad," Kendra called out, not even bothering to show her face. Andre closed the door, not slammed, but closed with a soft, definitive click that said, "Denied." He was choosing Kendra's budget over his mother's pain. My jaw locked. I walked away and went back to the guest room. I didn't try to knock again. I knew what I had to do. The silence I had chosen before was about endurance. The silence now was about preparation. I pulled the deed out of my housecoat pocket and unfolded it. I needed to know the true weight of the house. I needed to know how much leverage I held. The paper crinkled, feeling like dry leaves. I went to the public library, a place where no one would hear my conversations, and called Monica Vance. "Monica," I said, keeping my voice low as the librarian shushed a noisy child nearby. "It's Dolores Mayfield. I need to talk to you about the house deed. I need a partition sale. Quiet. No warning." Monica didn't ask why. She just listened to the condensed version of the events. The lock, the robe, the china, the humiliation. When I mentioned the packed wedding portrait and the tossed army medals, I heard a sharp intake of breath on the line. "Dolores," she said, her professional tone hardening into steel, "I'm looking at the county records now. You are the sole title holder. No liens. Clear title. You have the leverage. We move now." I looked out the library window at the passing traffic. I had spent my life believing I was supposed to be a warm, soft place for my family to land. Andre and Kendra had mistaken that warmth for weakness, that softness for a doormat. I want a cash buyer, Monica, fast, and I want the sale to be final before they know I'm even listing it. She promised me she'd run comps and have an initial offer within a week. I closed the book on the old life, the one where I had to ask permission to use my own bathtub. I closed the book, knowing the kind of peace I needed would have to be purchased in full. Monica moved fast. 2 days later, an encrypted email arrived at my library account. She had an interested party, a property development group willing to waive all contingencies for a quick all-cash closing. The offer was generous, $500,000, and the only requirement was a clean exit within 30 days. I looked at the number, a solid, life-changing weight of money, and felt a surge of strength I hadn't felt since I beat back the bank's foreclosure threat back in '89. But first, Andre tried his false savior move. I came home that afternoon to find Kendra in the backyard with a small shovel and a measuring tape, pointing at the old swing set I'd installed for Andre when he was 10. "I'm going to tear this up," she announced, not looking at me. "It's an eyesore. I want a proper outdoor living space, maybe a fire pit." She laughed. "I don't care what the HOA says. We'll charm them." Her casual destruction of my property made my stomach twist, but I just nodded and walked past her. I had already called Monica back and confirmed the sale. That evening, Andre knocked on the guest room door. He had a manila folder in his hand and a serious expression. "Ma, we need to talk about the house. For real this time." He sat on the stiff mattress edge, making the springs squeak in protest. "Kendra and I have been looking at our options. We know you're the sole owner, but we're a family, right?" I waited. "We spoke to a notary. Look." He opened the folder and slid a document toward me. It was labeled Joint Tenancy Agreement with Right of Survivorship. "We want you to sign this, Ma. It makes us equal owners. If you pass, everything comes to us, tax-free, and in return, we'll set up an arrangement. You'll be a co-owner, and we'll pay you a monthly stipend of $1,000 for utilities and maintenance. You'll be taken care of. No more worries." He was offering me $1,000 of my own money for my silence and my signature on a document that would strip me of all legal leverage. He was trying to buy my dignity with a pittance. The audacity made me feel cold, calmer than ever. "You want me to sign over half my house in exchange for a stipend?" I asked, picking up the pen he offered. "It's the smart way, Ma. We're securing our future and yours. We'll even fix that outlet in here." I held the pen, staring at the line where my signature was required. I looked up at Andre, the exhaustion etched around his eyes. He genuinely thought he was offering me a favor, He thought I was so desperate for $1,000 that I'd give up $500,000 and the control that came with it. Andre, I said, my voice barely a whisper, you locked me out of the laundry room this morning. Ma, that was just a misunderstanding with Kendra's camera equipment. It's open now, I swear. It was a lie. I had heard the chain rattle when I checked 10 minutes before he knocked. I set the pen back down on the paper, letting the sound of plastic hitting paper echo in the small, drafty room. I need time to read this, I said. It's a big decision. Leave the paper here. His relief was palpable. He stood up. Great, Ma. I knew you'd come around. He squeezed my shoulder. We're a team. He left. I didn't touch the paper again. I knew he was watching the door, expecting to hear the lock turn on my side, signaling my acceptance. I retrieved my old foreclosure threat letter from '89, the one I had framed and hidden behind a cheap landscape print. It was a dark yellow document from the bank, threatening to take the house from me. I had fought that battle alone, skipping the heat that winter to save money for legal fees. I looked at the signature on that letter, the one that meant ruin, and then I looked at the new contract. Both documents were trying to steal my home. I focused on the notary's name on Andre's contract. Arthur Davies. A quick online search confirmed he was a well-known notary in the next county. I knew I couldn't trust this document, but I could use the name. I needed to know if Andre had already filed something against me. I called Monica and told her about the joint tenancy contract, mentioning Arthur Davies specifically. That's his way of preempting the sale, Dolores, Monica said. It's dirty. If you sign, it ties up the deed indefinitely. I didn't sign, I confirmed, but I need to move the closing date up, now, before he tries anything else. I looked at the contract sitting on my stiff bed, the name Arthur Davies bold beneath the legal jargon. He looked at me, waiting for my signature, but I was staring at a name I hadn't seen in over 3 decades. Monica secured the fastest closing date possible, the Saturday, 12 days from now. I had to move quietly, but quickly. The leverage was the cash buyer. The risk was Andre attempting to file a fraudulent lien or some other legal block using that pre-signed notary contract. I started executing my extraction plan. I couldn't just leave, or they'd claim I abandoned the property and try to seize the money. I needed to move the things that mattered without being noticed. I wrapped my husband's medals and my grandmother's doilies in a clean cloth and hid them inside the lining of my bulky winter coat. I drove to my friend Clara's house under the pretense of watching her cat for the weekend. I was making room, like I told Kendra. Kendra, meanwhile, was escalating the social war. I came home and found her on the front porch, filming a live video. She was talking about toxic family dynamics and manifesting better boundaries. And sometimes, she said to the camera, tilting her head for maximum effect, you just have to remove the negative energy. We're working on creating a safe, loving space here, but some people just don't know how to respect a home's vibration. She didn't name me, but the camera was focused on the front door, and she kept glancing inside. It was a public performance of my humiliation. My hands clenched inside my coat pockets. I didn't say a word. I just walked past her, my silence a wall. I made a mental note of the date and the platform. Social stake. Later that day, I was in the backyard, trimming the rose bush I had planted 20 years ago. It was an echo of resilience, still blooming despite the drought. I saw Kendra marching through the yard, heels digging into the soil, with a landscape designer. This whole section has to go, she instructed the man, pointing directly at my roses. It's old-fashioned. Just level it all out. We want zero maintenance. I stood up, holding my gardening shears. That's my rose bush, Kendra. I planted it. Dolores, she sighed, rolling her eyes for the benefit of the designer. "We own this space now. It's part of the new look. We'll buy you a nice little potted rose for your room later." "It's not for sale," I stated. She just walked away, chatting about the cost of the hot tub she wanted. The designer looked uncomfortable. As soon as they were out of sight, I pulled out my phone and took a rapid series of photographs. Kendra pointing at the roses, the measuring tape near the old swing set, the new, expensive landscaping markers pushed into the soil. Physical evidence of her destruction, not just her desire. I also took photos of the new laundry chain, the cracked bathroom sink in the guest room, and the sparking outlet. I texted them all to Monica with the caption, "Condition of property." That night, Andre caught me by the electrical panel in the utility closet, the one he'd claimed was for Kendra's equipment. I was taking pictures of the panel labels. "What are you doing, Ma?" His voice was sharp. He was finally dropping the mask of concerned son. "Documenting the house systems," I replied. "Standard practice." "Standard practice for what?" "For getting ready to leave." He grabbed my arm, squeezing hard. "Listen to me. Don't do anything stupid. We know you're trying to sell. We already spoke to a lawyer about pre-filing a claim for unjust enrichment and cohabitation rights. If you try to move the closing, we'll freeze the title. You'll be stuck in court for a year." His threat was cold, delivered with the certainty of a man who thought he held all the cards. I didn't flinch. I looked down at his hand gripping my arm. "You're hurting me, Andre," I said flatly. He immediately dropped his hand, his eyes widening with shame. Vulnerability Ping paid off. He couldn't be the concerned son and the thug at the same time. "I'm just warning you, Ma. We're not going back to renting." "Then maybe you shouldn't have boxed up your mother's life," I countered, turning the knife slowly. I walked away, feeling his hot shame burning a hole in my back. The next morning, the church newsletter arrived. I saw a small item buried on page 5. Yard sale and moving help needed for Dolores Mayfield. Andre and Kendra hadn't placed it. My granddaughter Tyler had. She had already started the social pressure. I called Monica, adrenaline coursing through me. "The closing is set for Saturday. I want the notice served on Sunday, mid-morning. I want the neighbors watching. I want her guests there. I want a witness." Monica's voice was the calm anchor in the storm. "It's done, Dolores. The deputy is scheduled. But I have one piece of paper for you now. The bank just called about that foreclosure from '89. They said your son, Andre, tried to request the original documents, claiming he was managing your financial affairs." My heart hammered against my ribs. He wasn't just blocking the sale. He was weaponizing my past. The depth of his planning was terrifying. I knew the closing papers were signed, but Kendra was about to sign something far more damning. The morning of the service was bright, the sun slicing through the kitchen blinds. It was a Sunday, the kind of day Kendra loved for her Judgment Day brunch, with mimosas and endless laughter. I was sipping tea, wearing my best white linen dress, the color of peace, the kind that unsettles people who know they have done you wrong. I heard the arrival before I saw them, the heavy thud of 2 cars pulling up, one a dark sedan, the other Monica's familiar black SUV. Then the heavy, deliberate knock. Not a friendly tap, but the kind of knock that carries the full weight of the county and the law. Andre opened the door, barefoot in gray sweatpants. His face, still heavy from sleep, went slack when he saw the deputy, badge gleaming, and Monica standing right beside him, folder in hand. "Good morning, Andre," Monica said, her voice carrying down the hall. "I'm here to serve you with notice. This property has been legally sold." She handed him the thick manila envelope. The deputy stepped forward, blocking Andre's retreat. Kendra appeared behind Andre, still in her silk robe, rollers half visible beneath a satin headscarf, holding a glass of orange juice. What is this? Is this from the HOA? Andre's eyes scanned the first few lines of the document. He went chalk white, the blood draining from his face as the words "Notice to Vacate" and "Sole Title Holder" hit him. He spun, his eyes finding mine at the kitchen table. "You sold the house," he whispered, the volume increasing until it was a raw scream. "You sold the whole damn house, Ma. You can't do this. We live here." I took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea. The room was silent now, the high-pitched giggles of the arriving brunch guests freezing just outside the open door. "No, Andre," I said, setting the cup down with a quiet clink. "You stayed here. This is the home I let you into. And then you locked me out of my own bedroom and called it a favor." Kendra's pampered composure shattered. "You're throwing your own son out? After everything we've done for you?" "You boxed up my life, Kendra," I countered, my voice steady. "You wore my husband's shirt. You turned the sanctuary I built with my back and my prayers into a shrine for your selfishness. And you thought I would die quietly in the guest room so you could plan your hot tub." The deputy stepped into the house, his presence imposing. "You have 30 days to vacate. This notice has been filed with the county, and the new owners will take possession immediately after. Any delay will result in enforcement action." Andre looked at the deputy, then at Monica, and finally at me. His face crumpled, not in remorse, but in the crushing shock of loss. The brunch guests, Tiffany and 2 others, stood frozen on the porch, their mimosas untouched. This was the social consequence I had planned for. "I can't believe you would do this to me," Andre muttered, the shame finally eclipsing the rage. "I believed in you, Andre," I said, letting the disappointment show for the first time. "That was my mistake." They didn't say another word. Kendra slammed the front door shut, the sound rattling the windows, and the guests scattered like pigeons. Monica and I drove straight to the title office. The buyer had insisted on an immediate transfer. Within 2 hours, the closing was finalized, and a large, heavy cashier's check for $500,000 was deposited into my new bank account. The funds cleared instantly. By 4 o'clock, I was looking at a small, beautiful 2-bedroom condo across town. It was near the park, quiet, and had a tiny balcony just big enough for a lemon tree and 2 rocking chairs. I bought it on the spot, cash buyer to cash seller. The paperwork was clean, fast, and silent. My revenge was complete, but the look in Andre's eye promised a fight that wasn't over. My peace lasted less than 48 hours. I was unpacking a box of linens in my new condo when the phone buzzed. Monica's alias flashed on the screen. "Andre filed an emergency motion this morning," she stated, her voice tight but not panicked. "He's claiming I committed fraud by rushing the sale and failing to disclose what he calls a material defect on the title." My jaw locked. "What material defect?" "The old foreclosure threat from '89, the one you fought off. He somehow accessed that record and is using it to argue the title wasn't clean, trying to stall escrow. He's weaponizing the debt you paid." Andre wasn't just trying to get the house back. He was trying to ruin me publicly by painting me as a financial liability, a liar who covered up old debts. He was aiming for the public rung of the escalation ladder. "But the house was clear," I insisted, pacing the small, quiet space of my new kitchen. "I paid that off 30 years ago. I have the receipts." "I know you do," Monica replied, the sound of her typing echoing in the receiver. "I already filed the counter motion. I included the final closing statement and the deed. The bank will back us up. This will be dismissed by the end of the day. But I need one more piece of leverage." She paused, letting the silence hang. "I need to prove that Andre had his own financial interest in the house. Any other debts or costs he was supposed to cover but didn't. Anything that shows his entitlement, not his reliance? The question triggered a memory. When Andre moved in, he had promised to take over the massive annual HOA fee and a final expensive roof repair from the old leak, saying it was his way of contributing to the new family economy. I hung up, heart pounding, and tore open the boxes of old files I'd saved from the guest room. I wasn't going to wait for a lawsuit to be dismissed. I found the folded estimates for the roof repair and a year's worth of unopened HOA notices. Andre hadn't paid a dime. He owed $4,000 on the roof and had let the annual HOA fee lapse twice. I texted the stack of documents to Monica immediately. Unpaid dues. His responsibility. He lied. The countermotion worked faster than I expected. By lunchtime, Monica called back. Motion dismissed. The judge didn't even look twice at the '89 debt. But that HOA file, that's gold. Andre actively created a new financial burden on the property while claiming to manage it. We've sent a copy of his unpaid bill to the new buyer, who was furious. He's officially lost his legal footing. He has 28 days left. I felt a surge of cold, clinical triumph. Andre had tried to shame me with the weight of old debt, but he had failed because he was too lazy to pay his own. Meanwhile, back at the house, the tension became a physical entity. Kendra, now facing the reality of being renters again, lost all restraint. She started calling my cell phone constantly, screaming that I was vindictive and spiteful. I never answered. I just let the voicemails stack up. One afternoon, I was walking back from the senior center when I saw a familiar car parked across the street from my condo building. It was Andre's old sedan. My stomach lurched. He was watching me. I didn't slow down or change my pace. I walked straight up the porch steps, keys rattling in my hand. He drove off slowly. I felt the paranoia sink its teeth in. He knew where I lived. He knew my safe place. He was still trying to exert control. That night, I checked all the locks twice. I felt the familiar ache in my knees, but it wasn't from arthritis. It was from the weight of knowing my freedom was still being challenged. I realized I hadn't moved all my keys. There was a spare condo key, hidden inside a jewelry box I'd left in the guest room closet. A key I'd planned to give Tyler. Now, Andre or Kendra might find it. I slept fitfully, the silence of the condo disturbed by the thought of my son having the spare key to my sanctuary. Andre may have lost the legal fight, but I knew he still held the key. The air in the house was thick with raw, bitter tension. I kept the guest room door open now, a silent dare. Kendra was still there, of course. She stopped blasting music. I heard her pacing, spending hours on speakerphone with her sisters, cycling through rage and self-pity. I told you we should have pushed her to sign the house over. I heard her cry once through the thin wall. Pushed me. That's what I was to them. An obstacle to be removed. A signature to be forced. 2 weeks before the deadline, Andre finally knocked on my door, the guest room door. I opened it slowly, taking my time. He looked rough, eyes bloodshot, hair messy, wearing the weight of failure like a shroud. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice strained. I stepped out into the hallway, closing the door behind me, sealing the privacy that he had once denied me. "You have 3 minutes." "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he started, the classic deflection. "We just needed some time to figure things out. We thought you'd understand. You put a keypad on my bedroom door and acted like I should thank you for it, Andre." I reminded him, folding my arms. He sighed, trying to pin the blame away from himself. "Kendra pushed that, not me." "And you let her," I said simply. "You let her erase me. You let her mock the home I paid for. You didn't stand up. We're losing everything, Ma." "You lost it the moment you forgot who this house belonged to," I finished. He looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. That was the cost. He had mistaken my love for compliance, and now he had lost the mother he thought he knew. Before I could close the door, the front door rattled open. Tyler, my granddaughter, stood there with a backpack slung over her shoulder. She was early from school, dropped off by a friend. She saw Andre's tormented face, and then she saw me, standing alone in the hallway. She walked straight past her father, eyes wide with concern, and hugged me hard, right there in the hall. "Grandma, you okay?" Andre watched the scene, frozen. Tyler's presence was a concrete, living accusation. It proved my dignity was intact, and that he was the isolated one. He didn't speak again. He just turned and walked away. That evening, Tyler and I made a list of the things she wanted in the new condo: a string of lights, a place for her drawing pencils, and a small area for her to work on her school grades. She talked freely now, her spirit undimmed by the toxic silence of the house. "Are you going to see them again?" she asked, arranging my photo albums. "Not unless they come with honesty in their mouths," I said. The night before the move-out deadline, I made one last meal in that kitchen: sweet potatoes, mac and cheese, fried catfish. I didn't cook it for them. I cooked it for the house, for the memories of a life that was once honest. Andre came into the kitchen and saw the plate I had made for myself. "You really going to eat like that while we pack our lives up?" he accused. "Yes," I said, looking him straight in the eye, "because I packed my life up 10 months ago, and you didn't blink." He walked away in silence. The next morning, the moving truck arrived at 9 a.m. I sat in the backyard with my tea and my rose clippers, watching them load. I didn't speak, didn't wave, didn't move until the truck pulled away at noon. The house was finally silent. I walked back in one last time. Every room echoed, stripped bare of the noise and the entitlement. I ran my fingers along the doorframe, where I used to measure Andre's height. I walked into the master bedroom, no longer theirs, and stood in the clean, quiet space. The house felt clean again. Later that night, I was putting up the thrift store fairy lights with Tyler when my phone buzzed with a notification. It wasn't Andre. It was Kendra's final public shot. She had posted a high-contrast photo of my condo building's entrance on social media with the caption, "Found the toxic liability. Let the community know what she did. She won't rest in peace here." Kendra's public attack, posting my location to incite neighbors, was the final venomous attempt at escalation. It was the public stake she had threatened. Monica immediately filed a cease and desist with the hosting platform for harassment, but the poison was already out there. The only way to counter public shame is with public dignity. I decided to focus on building a new legacy, not defending the old one. I started volunteering at the community center, helping to organize an estate planning workshop for women over 60. I saw the faces of women who looked like me, women who had been pushed out, written off, and robbed by their own families. I gave a short talk about boundaries, about recognizing that love without respect is just manipulation dressed up in flowers. One woman hugged me afterward, tears in her eyes. "You gave me permission to protect what's mine," she said. That quiet empowerment was worth more than the money. A week later, the letter arrived. No return address. I opened it slowly. It was from Andre. "Ma, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I got caught up trying to prove something, and I lost myself. Kendra and I split. He admitted regret, but not accountability. He still framed himself as the victim of Kendra's influence and his own ambition. I miss you, Andre." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't cry or smile. Some wounds don't bleed anymore, but they still ache in the cold. Then a second envelope arrived, this one from Monica. It contained the final closing balance and a brochure for a women's housing fund being launched at the community center. A sticky note read, "You inspired this. Want to help lead it?" I thought about all the invisible women who were being dismissed and displaced. I called Monica and told her I'd match the first 5 donations with funds from the sale of my house. I wasn't just taking my money. I was reinvesting it into a new, honest foundation. Dolores, you're building something bigger than a garden now. Monica laughed softly. That Sunday, Tyler and I baked sweet potato pies. We took one over to the old neighborhood, to the house I sold. A young couple was moving in, the wife visibly pregnant. "You must be Miss Mayfield," the wife said, eyes wide and warm. "Just wanted to say welcome," I told her. "That house has been through a lot, but it still holds love in its walls." I didn't look back. I had closed the loop. I had taken the loss and turned it into legacy. The new rose bush Tyler and I had planted on the tiny balcony was thriving. It was soft, resilient, rooted. Then I heard the whisper that stole my breath. It was Friday night, the weekly church fish fry, a large community gathering. I was at the dessert table, helping Tyler serve cobbler slices. Tyler's face froze. "Grandma," she whispered. I looked up, and there he was. Andre. He stood alone in the crowd, looking older, tired, the guilt visible in his slumped shoulders and wrinkled clothes. No Kendra beside him. He had a plate in his hand and a heart too heavy for his chest. He stepped forward. "Ma," he said. The final, unplanned confrontation was here. I wiped my hands on a napkin and nodded toward the edge of the lot by the old oak tree. We walked over slowly. My legs didn't move the way they used to, but I stood tall. "I've been thinking about everything," he began, the rehearsed words falling flat. "About what I did, what I let her do, and I don't even know how to apologize in a way that sounds like enough." "Then don't try," I said. He looked surprised. He defaulted to the core lie. "I was trying to give Kendra the life she wanted. She said you were too stubborn. I thought if I just handled things, you'd thank me." I blinked slow. "You handled things all right," I said. "You handled your mother like a piece of furniture." He swallowed hard. "I deserved that." "You deserved worse," I countered, calm as still water. "But I chose silence. I chose peace. You made your choices. I made mine." He looked down. "I lost the house. I lost her. I lost everything." "No," I said, holding up my hand to stop his response. "You lost me. You didn't just hurt me, Andre. You erased me. You watched me be diminished in the home I paid for. You stood by while she mocked me. You didn't stand up." Tears welled in his eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "Good," I said, "because I'm not there yet." We stood in silence for a long time. The sound of the crowd was muffled by the space between us, a mother and son separated by choices that couldn't be undone. "Is there anything I can do to earn it back?" he asked finally. "Not yet," I said. "Maybe not ever, but if you keep showing up in the right places in the right way, without asking for applause, you might get close." Tyler walked over, a plate in her hand, and stood beside me. Andre looked at her. "Hey, sweetheart." She didn't answer. She just handed me a cup of lemonade and stayed put. He got the message. "I should go," he said. As he walked away, I felt something heavy lift. Not because he apologized, but because I had already reclaimed what mattered. He could carry the guilt. I had carried enough. That night, Tyler and I sat on the balcony under the fairy lights. The rose bush had 4 new buds. "Will you ever let him back in?" she asked. I sipped my tea and looked into the quiet night. I let go of the house, the fight, the anger. "But my peace," I said, "that has to be earned." I reached into my sweater pocket and pulled out a key. The spare key to the condo. This is for you, I said. I want you to always have a place that's yours, no matter who tells you otherwise. She took the key and held it tight. The message was clear. You are not disposable. You will not be pushed into the guest room of your own life. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the stars. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like someone trying to survive. I felt like a woman who had already won. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.